Hey crew, Neal here with part 2 of our discussion about 1979's Alien, and Kenny and I wanted to just say up top that this half of the conversation discusses subjects like rape and sexual assault as they pertain to the life cycle and behaviors of the Xenomorph and the other characters in the movie, and some discussion of things that would have made those themes even stronger and more present and more obvious in the film that existed in earlier drafts of the script. The conversations about those things really started about the 25-minute mark and end around the 55-minute mark. That's a ballpark, and it's not consistent. It is just sort of, it does permeate that segment of the show. And since these are difficult subjects, we just wanted to give everybody a heads up. So if you skip this one, no hard feelings. We understand. We'll catch you next time. But for now, let's get into this, the rest of our conversation about 1979's Alien. All right. So now that we're about 2 hours into this thing, just about, let's talk about the monsters in this movie. There are two. I'm not prepared to call the space jockey in this movie a monster. From what we see of it, we don't really know anything about it, right? And it's dead.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's really humanoid looking. It's already been dead for a long time. It might be a monster in the sense we're referring to, but like it's not a threat, so whatever.
No. And it's very alien, like it's very elephant-like, you know. Yeah. If this is in fact the same, because there are, I guess, some fan theories out there that the space jockey isn't an engineer, right? But if this is an engineer in that suit, I mean, the flight suit obviously gives it that elephant look, right?
Yeah, for
sure. Fine, I'll buy it, you know. But it feels like a different creature to me, also in terms of scale and size and everything like that. But whatever, like if they made the choice, like no, it's a spacesuit and there's a humanoid underneath there, fine, okay.
Yep. That's just how it goes. That's what it is now, you know?
I'll take it. I wish I didn't. That's an answer I wish I didn't have a little bit.
Same.
Maybe because it's just kind of unsatisfying. But that's not one of the monsters I'm considering of the two. The two, of course, are the Xenomorph and Ash himself. What a fucking monster. Let's talk about the Xenomorph.
Well, for starters, may I point out that the Xenomorph is actually 3 different monsters, because the ovomorph is itself actually a living creature. And then inside the ovomorph, it holds a face hugger, and then the face hugger implants the embryo and then dies. And then the embryo turns into a chest burster, which then turns into a xenomorph.
Right.
So technically the lifestyle of a xenomorph requires 3 different creatures for one of them to survive. But they're all the Xenomorph, quote unquote, you know?
The facehugger looks like the fucking facehugger. Like they fucking nailed that design. They haven't changed the facehugger design really at all, have they, in anything?
I mean they have like other versions. There's like, you know, a royal facehugger that shows up in the 3rd one and all that. But yeah, it's just like, it's still just a fucking facehugger. And dude, let me tell you, like still to this day, I watched this movie again, like, you know, a day or 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And well, the face hugger showed up 2 days ago, because you know that happens in the first half of the movie.
Right.
And like, dude, this thing in the year of our Lord 2022 still fucking gross as hell.
Disgusting. And the scene where it latches onto him, still creepy as fuck, like terrifying, scary.
That's actually scene. One thing I'd like to say is you mentioning that scene where it latches onto him. That's actually something I'd like to briefly say about literally every single alien attack in this entire movie.
Yes.
The actual scene where they get attacked. It is a masterwork of fucking editing. Because like, since we're talking about the facehugger, I'll use this scene as the example to like signify for all of them. What we actually see on screen is Kane looking into the egg, then this blob kind of shifting, and then him going, ah, and reacting as some tentacles kind of shoot towards the camera. And then there's a flash of motion, but we can't really see what it is. And then there's this weird kind of vaguely beige blob on his face. And then, like, after about 3/4 of a second, he falls backwards out of frame.
Yeah.
If you're watching this in 1979, there's no fucking way in hell that you actually know what just happened.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
And like all of the scenes where somebody gets attacked by an alien, all of them are like that. They're edited in a way where after you've seen it, you go, oh, that's what was going on. But at the time, it's so sudden cut and disorienting that you're like, I'm not entirely sure what actually just happened right now.
Yeah, it's good. That's the thing that I kind of didn't remember about this is not a particularly gory movie.
It's really not. Like even the famous scene of gore that everyone remembers, the chest burster scene, isn't actually that gory.
It is. I mean, it's still pretty damn bloody and effective, but like,
it's definitely it's the goriest scene in the movie for sure.
Yeah.
But like, it's not as gory as you remember it being once you go back and watch it.
Right. It was not. It's probably the best chest burster scene in the entire series, though. Still, right? Like,
yeah, probably. I'm struggling to think of another one that's better.
We love the imp. We love the little dude in Covenant, right?
The bloodburster.
The imp at the end. The Praetomorph.
Yeah. Yes.
Popping out with arms and legs ready to,
Yeah, I believe on that episode I described him as tap dancing as a joke, even though he's literally just standing there T-posing.
But he's ready to tap dance like in Spaceballs.
That's right.
Yeah, we love him. But this in terms of chest burster scenes, the original one, this is the most terrifying, the craziest. When that thing just pops out and it's just like looking around the room before it runs off, and Parker's going to like smash it with a pan and Ash stops him. Another sign of Ash being kind of cagey, right?
Yeah.
And the thing just like squeals and runs off. Like,
the thing that always got me about that scene is that out of focus in the background, you see Kane's arms just standing there twitching while he's dying.
Yeah.
Like the twitching arms in the background fucking gets me every single time, dude.
Yeah, it's intense. They had him in a rig, so like his torso was like sticking out. He was like, his arms and head were sticking out through like this animatronic torso that had the effects, like the pneumatic effects to like create, like burst the thing through the chest and like make the legs work. So I think he's like literally just sort of sticking through there, twitching his arms. I really want to see what that rig looks like. That sounds like a really cool piece of filmmaking tech, honestly. The Ash stopping them from smashing the little guy, it does make sense in that they have already discovered that the face hugger has acidic blood, right?
Yeah.
Through trying to cut it off of Kane's face, and the blood like tearing through multiple decks of the ship, like in their apparently that idea came from Ron Cobb, one of the conceptual artists working on the movie. I think he primarily was working on environments versus creature design, because Dan O'Bannon was trying to figure out why the crew wouldn't just get weapons and blow the thing away, right? And like you could make the argument like, oh, maybe they're not armed on the ship, right? Like they just don't have guns. But the idea that like we can't just smash this thing, we can't just cut this thing up because it's got acid blood, and if we do that, it's going to rip through the hole. It's going to burn through the hole and kill us all. That's a very, very cool part of the mythology. So Ron Cobb's like, if we give it acid blood, they can't do that, right? Because it'll sabotage the ship.
Yeah, he just fucking cut that Gordian knot right in half by thinking that, dude.
So it makes sense that Ash like would be like, don't smash this thing. The other alien has acid blood. If you squish this thing, it might bleed and burn through the hole, Yeah. It's not said, but it makes sense, right? The molecular acid blood of it all makes sense.
Yeah, because this movie never actually posits that xenomorphs themselves, like full grown like drones or warriors or whatever their cast is.
Yeah.
The movie never actually goes out of their way to show you whether fully grown xenomorphs also have acid blood. The face hugger is the only one that we actually explicitly see, and I believe it was the second one, Aliens, that decided that yes, full grown xenomorphs also have acid blood. But like in this movie, we're never actually given a direct reason to think that,
Right.
because they never really like injure the alien at all. So
no, not until the end when Ripley shoots it with the grappling gun.
Right. That's really the only time they ever actually injure it at all, I think.
And it didn't seem to be an issue then, the acid blood.
No.
So I wonder, but so they're operating under the assumption that if they cut this thing up, if they blow this thing away, it could just eat a giant hole through the whole hull of the ship, and they will all be sucked out into the vacuum of space.
Yeah, they assume it will just because the facehugger did, but like there's no actual proof anywhere in this movie that xenomorphs operate the same way.
Right.
I mean, they probably do, but maybe they don't, because remember, based on their life cycle, the facehugger is a different creature than the xenomorph is. So
yeah, it's a logical conclusion to draw.
I mean, yeah, like they made that assumption in the second one, and like, yeah, it makes sense. And like, if somebody had asked me based solely on like, I watched the first one, that's it, hadn't seen any of the other ones, and then someone stops me on the street and says, "Hey, do fully grown xenomorphs have acidic blood?" I'd go, "Yeah, of course they do."
Totally.
Like, I mean, it's the correct assumption to make,
right?
But like, my point is simply that they had to make the assumption because nothing in this movie actually points that out.
Right.
That's all I was saying.
So let's talk a little more about the alien itself. How long was the facehugger implanted, like on Kane's face, do you think? It was several hours, right?
I mean, based on now, admittedly, this piece of info is kind of based on like the other movies that we've already seen.
Right.
But I had guessed if I had to give a rough estimate, I probably would have said probably right around 12 hours or so.
Okay. Was it on him for 12 hours? Because it's on him, it falls off, and then he's still unconscious for a period of time before he wakes up. And then when he wakes up, that's when the thing bursts. Not immediately, but like I'd say within an hour of him being conscious, right? When he goes to eat. You know?
Yeah, because like he wakes up, he says that he's hungry, and then they're like, "All right, well, we investigated the signal, so since you're hungry, let's have one last meal before we go back into hypersleep," and that's when it happens.
Right. So you think it's like a like 12 hours basically. They got him back to the ship, but they had to get back up into space and everything as well too. So
because, well, that was the other thing I was wondering. When do they go? Like, because a big chunk of the beginning of this movie takes place when they're on the lander.
Yeah.
When does the action switch back from the lander to the Nostromo proper? Do you remember?
No. But again, but the medical bay, again, what you're calling the lander, I think is the Nostromo, right? It's like the cab of the truck, right?
Okay. All right. Yes, you're right.
The whole thing.
I did misspeak when I said that. Yes, you're correct.
Yeah. So he's in the med bay before they've even taken off, and like I think they're all the way. I think they're back up in space before they start to experiment on him. Like I think they take off.
Yeah, like when I said go back to the Nostromo, what I meant is when they went and reattached back to the cargo is what I was getting at.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
Because, like, there was the time when the Nostromo is, like, on the planetoid itself, and then at a certain point, they take back off and connect back to, like, the main segment of the ship, and I'm trying to remember, does that happen before or after Kane dies?
They are in space when Kane dies, because I think if they were on the planet, they would have just kicked all the stuff out, onto the planet.
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
I think they would have been in better shape if they had been on the planet, because had they stayed on the planet and the thing hatched, theoretically, they probably could have all, like, most of them could have climbed into pods. One person could have gotten in, like, an atmospheric suit. They could have just opened all the doors and just let, like, hopefully the thing gets sucked out, and then they, and then they take off from there, right? I don't know.
Because I'm trying to figure out the timing of this, because like, they were on the planet for approximately 25 hours, and like, they had to go all the way back out to where the Juggernaut was and then come all the way back.
Right.
And that probably would have taken a good few hours at least. And so it had to have been at the absolute maximum, maybe 18 hours. And now, admittedly, when I say probably about 12 hours, I'm getting that number from that is approximately how long I guessed it took for a Bloodburster to hatch in Covenant. So I just assumed these guys worked physiologically similar.
Wait, how long did it take a Bloodburster in Covenant, are you saying?
I think it was about 12 hours, and I think that's where I got the number for this from, because I was thinking about that.
It just seems a lot faster in Covenant, you know? Like,
well, okay, you're right. Yes, because again, it has been a little while since I've seen Covenant. I said Bloodburster, but I didn't mean Bloodburster. I meant fucking the Praetomorph, because because we guessed it was like, because like when Lope gets killed by it, he got infected the night before, they go to sleep, and then he dies the next morning.
Right.
So somewhere in the 8 to 12 hour range is how long it takes him. So yeah, not the Bloodburster, the Praetomorph is what I was thinking of, that probably took around 12 hours.
On the other side of the coin, Aurum gets impregnated and births the imp almost immediately, and then that imp
pretty much right away,
and then that imp is fully grown within 5.5 minutes. Like, so
for
him it seemed to take like half an hour, and then for Lope it took longer. Pretty inconsistent. And that's an issue, because like there's a guy in Alien Resurrection that has one in it, and it lasts for hours. Ripley carrying the queen
has won the entirety of 3, you know?
Yeah, but it is a queen, so you could argue maybe the gestation period is longer. Like I guess
it's true.
Yeah, but this seemed to take, I don't know. Yeah, I'm okay with the 12-hour scenario. That seems about right. You know, we don't really see because the crew stays awake the whole time, right?
Yeah.
We don't see them like going to bed and waking up or anything like that in between these things. So I think 12 hours is believable.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't have been any more than that, because like you said, he already had it off of him by the time they went back up into space. And, they had to have had the time for him to go out there and then also come back. So it couldn't have been any more than around 12 hours tops, because they were only down there for 24.
Right.
So,
okay. So the thing is on board. Right. The thing has burst out of Kane.
It sure has.
It grows big quickly. Something that I don't think I credit. I think I'm on record on the show being like, man, the thing gets huge. The Praetomorphs got huge so fast. I think I've been in some of these Discord servers talking about Alien versus Predator. Like, man, everything is maturing so quickly. This seems to be pretty standard for a Xenomorph, that it will go from chest burster to full grown very, very rapidly. The inconsistency seems to primarily be with the ovomorph and the face hugger side of things. So, there's still some inconsistencies there, but this seems,
it's fine.
Yeah, but the thing matures rapidly, it gets huge quick, terrifying, right?
Yep.
Very scary aspect of this thing. It only kills 4 people, right?
Well, let's see. If you want to count it killing Kane, because it is the same creature.
Yeah, I guess it kills everybody. I guess actually it kills everybody.
it kills Kane, it kills Brett, it kills Dallas.
Yeah.
And then it kills Parker and Lambert. So it kills 5 people.
5 people. So when I said 4, I wasn't counting Kane, but it absolutely kills Kane. Right.
Yeah, I mean, your brain psychologically considers it a separate creature, because we classify that as a chest burster rather than a xenomorph.
Right.
But a chest burster is just like the larval stage of the xenomorph.
Yeah.
The way Kane died, the creature that killed it is literally the same creature that killed everyone else. But since it's like a different stage, you register it differently mentally. But yeah, technically it kills 5 people.
And none of the kills are particularly brutal or gory or drawn out. They're all pretty quick, instantaneous. This thing appears, in somewhere in the room, in the environment. They don't notice it, and it bites them, and they're dead, or grabs them and pulls them up into the chains or something. And it's just, the very fast, rapid kills. The behavior of the creature is different than what we see with just like the horde of aliens in Aliens, for instance. Or
those are all basically just mindless animals that are trying to overwhelm everyone with sheer numbers.
Sure.
This one's like a hunter and it can like think.
Right.
You know?
And the Praetomorph, as we discussed in the Covenant episode, that thing is, again, just more aggressive and less intelligent.
It's dumber but angrier. Yeah, pretty much.
Right. And this thing is just, it's quiet, it's stealthy, it's silent. It just sort of, it stands tall. It's not like crouched down a lot in the way that we see it depicted in a lot of media, like Serpentine. It's not a runner like in Alien 3. It's bipedal.
Yeah, there's one of them. It might have been when it was facing down Parker and Lambert, maybe.
Yeah.
There's one where like it goes to attack them and stands up in front of them, and it kind of like unfurls to its full height.
Right.
And it's so big that it actually has to look down at the person it's standing in front of.
Yeah, dude, it is so...
Loved it so much.
So scary and just so different than the way we see xenomorphs act in the rest of the film franchise. Just completely. And I really want this mannerism, like I want the return of these mannerisms, like even like it's a little bit silly when it like sticks its hands out, like, you know, I think I've heard people describe it as like surprise when it kills Dallas. It's still there's something unnerving about the way it moves. Like it's more human than we see it in the rest of the franchise.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I want a return to that for the new movie, personally. I don't want hordes of these things to the point where like it's a Zerg rush and they're just overwhelming you with numbers, but they aren't particularly hard to kill. And even though you're splattering acid blood all over the place, it doesn't really fucking matter for some reason. Aliens.
Yeah, like here's the thing, man. Like, I mean, I know I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this to you before, but like to the listeners, this will be new information. Like, I mean, I know this is a spoiler alert for like a few episodes down the line, but I'm going to tell you right now, I don't really think Aliens is a very good movie. I don't really like it that much. And that's the reason why, because like in this movie, they posit that a xenomorph is like a cunning hunter that can stalk from the shadows and murder you when you're not paying attention. And it can like think and plan. And then in the fucking second one, they're just completely mindless stimulus response attacking by sheer numbers. And I'm like, one of you by themselves killed 5 people. Why are like just they completely change how xenomorphs think and act and work. And I just that's the reason why 2 just doesn't really work for me as a movie, because the reason I like this movie and the reason I think xenomorphs are cool is because the way it's depicted in this movie is what I like that characterization of how this creature works. That's the thing about them that I like.
Yes.
So then the sequel, they totally fucking change that and get rid of it altogether.
Right.
And I'm like, this just isn't interesting to me anymore because of it.
So you could make the case. I mean, it doesn't work for Aliens, right? But like, there's a maybe an added layer of intelligence and environmental awareness added to this xenomorph because it happens to be sharing Kane's DNA, right? Human DNA versus, say, Alien 3, where it's either a dog or an ox, depending on which version of the movie you watch. And so it is just a little bit more animalistic and, not as cunning, right? But all of the aliens in Alien, all of the xenomorphs in Alien came from humans as far as we know, right? Unless the creature, unless the queen in that is actually even then it's still going to come from humans. I'm trying to say, like, if maybe what burst out of the space jockey was the queen, right? That we end up seeing in
maybe
Aliens. Who knows?
Yeah, who fucking knows?
Right. But if all of the xenomorphs we see in that were the same as this one, everybody would be fucking dead. They would have lost. If you were dealing with 50 of this guy, you're fucked. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, but somehow they're not. They're not dealing with 50 of this guy. They're dealing with 50 like 10 IQ versions of this guy somehow.
Right. Yeah, some of them just doesn't really add up. Now, I do really like Aliens. For a long time it was my favorite in the series. I was just at that age where I was looking for action movies, you know.
Yeah.
As an adult, this is my favorite. This is my favorite in the series. Absolutely, 100% is.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I can recognize that Aliens is a fun movie, like in its like on its own in a vacuum. But what it comes down to is that is just simply not what I fucking want out of a sequel to this movie.
Right.
You know, it just did not give me what I was looking for when I heard that they made a second one. It's just, that's all. That's simply what it is. It's just not what I fucking wanted out of a sequel to Alien is all.
But it really does feel like this is a different monster. This is a different creature than the rest of the franchise. And there's and again, there are variations movie to movie. There are different versions of the Xenomorph. Obviously, Queens act differently, etc. But nothing else. We don't ever see this guy again. And I really want to see this guy again because it just, there's like in that scene with Lambert and Parker when they're trying to get some kind of like coolant cartridges or something for the shuttle, right?
Something like that. Yeah.
There's a part where it's right before the scene where it is going to kill Lambert and Parker's yelling at her to get out of the way so he can take it down with a flamethrower. As they're like tossing these things into their carts or whatever, like onto the dollies, you see the Xenomorph shadow, you see the creature come in, you see its shadow get cast right in between them before you even see it. It's a fucking brilliant scene, but like this dude is just like, there's a little bit of this aspect to it of he's just like I'm just chilling. Like there's a deleted scene, of course, with the with Dallas cocooned, right?
Yep.
As if this thing is just doing what it's got to do, where it's got to capture hosts, and it just all it knows how to do, right? But we don't see that in this movie. So in either version, there's either a version where it's like, hey, I did my job and I'm just trying to hang out, and you guys keep disrupting me, or in this theatrical version, it's like, hey, I'm just like stuck here, and I gotta eat, like I'm hungry, right?
Yep.
Like, but I'm not actively hunting you guys. You guys keep coming to me. There's this, you know, because I guess the exception to that would be the Dallas scene, where based on that deleted scene, the motivation was different than the rest of the encounters with the creature. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. It's almost like they could have just left it alone. Like it's not even actively hunting them. They just keep stumbling into its zone. Like if they had just stayed on the deck, right, and kept the doors closed, like theoretically they could have been fine, you know?
Yeah, theoretically, yeah.
I mean, obviously it's still a problem that needs to get dealt with at some point. Yeah. But it's just interesting. Just the behavior is just interesting and scary.
Let me ask you something.
Sure.
Since we're talking about, you know, the Xenomorph itself and how it's going around killing people, let me ask you, just first instinctive gut reaction. Which of the murders it commits is personally your favorite? It
would be the Dallas one, and in this version of it, it's a murder, right? We don't see him later on cocooned, but it would be, you know, Lambert telling him it's you know, he's in the vents. They're trying to do the thing where they lock off the doors and lure it to the airlock, right? And and the motion tracker's working, and they're like, oh my God, it's coming right after you. Have to get out of there. It's like real close to you, and he has no idea where it is. He's freaking out. He climbs down the ladder like to the next like set of vents and turns it, and it's right there. He was just off by a level, right? Like they weren't tracking in 3D. Boom. Hands shoot out, it squeals. Dallas is done, it cuts. We see the flamethrower, right? We see Parker come back with the flamethrower that he had. And they're like, yeah, that's it. Dallas is gone, you know? Like, that's my favorite. Genuinely my favorite. It's the tension, the buildup around it is so it's fun. It's cool. It's the scene I think about. It's the scene that gets parodied with the dog in The Simpsons, you know? It's a classic.
Yeah, I mean,
what about you?
Honestly, mine probably also is Dallas. Sure. Because the thing of it is that, like, you know how you said earlier that it's like, you know, a lot of people joke about how it's doing like the jazz hands or whatever when he turns the lights on at him. Yeah. But like, that's not how, when I watch the movie, it doesn't register to me that the alien is standing there in the dark with its hands out, and then he turns the light on at it, and it continues to still just stand there but squeal at him. The way my brain operates at it is that it was moving and then stopped and was like but it was like in the process of lunging at him
Right.
when he turned and shone the light on it.
100%.
And the only reason it doesn't the only reason it doesn't look like that when you watch the movie is because he's not like actively moving.
Right.
But like, to me, the reason why he's not shown as like actively in the middle of a lunge is just because of technological limitations of the fact that the movie was made in 1979.
Right.
Like, to my brain, the intention is that he turned as it was in the middle of lunging through the air at him.
Yes.
But like, we just saw it on like a held shot so we could have more time to react and go, oh no, holy shit.
Right. It's clearly what you're seeing is the intent for her, for sure. Or what you're saying. Absolutely. That's the best. That's the best Xenomorph scene.
It works really well, and it's another death in this movie where the death is simply implied rather than actually shown. Because like, Kane actually gets killed.
Yeah.
Brett just gets picked up and then he's just not in the movie anymore.
Right.
Parker actually gets domed in the head with the second mouth. He actually gets killed on screen. But like, Dallas and Brett and Lambert don't actually get killed on screen.
No.
But like, of the ways they did it, I think Dallas's, personally to me, works the best of the three of them.
But when Ripley finds Parker's body, doesn't she also see, isn't Lambert's also there?
Oh yeah, that's right. Because because Parker's body is laying down on the ground and she's like, oh my God. And then we only see part of Lambert's body because she's like hanging from off screen.
Yeah.
And so we just see her legs dangling there, which, by the way, that's actually something else I'd like to talk about. That death scene, and specifically Lambert's half of the death scene.
It's supposed to be different. I remember this. Yeah, please.
In the original version of the movie, Lambert's death, like, she gets killed when the alien grabs her and then rapes her to death. That is how she was supposed to die in the original version of the movie.
That is not what I heard. Okay.
Well, then later on, there was a rewrite where they changed her death again so that she got so scared, she ran off and climbs into a locker and then literally dies of fright inside of the locker.
Yeah, she has
like a heart attack and a panic attack and dies in the locker.
That
and then eventually they changed it to this. But like, they still have a little bit of that like original way she was supposed to die, because like, she's like facing down the alien and then there's like an insert shot of like the tail wrapping around her leg and like pointing up towards her hips.
Something they reference in the shower scene in Covenant.
And then also in some of the going back to what we were discussing earlier, the Isolation DLC, during the one where you play as Ripley trying to escape, you can actually come across Lambert's body in that level, and her body is lying on top of a big crate in a pool of blood, but the blood, the pool of blood that she's lying in, the blood is coming from in between her legs.
Oh Jesus, I don't like that at all.
And they actually went out of their way to say that the stuff that happens in that level isn't intended to be canon. It's just filled with a whole bunch of Easter eggs to the lore and the making of the movie. So they're not implying that actually is what happened to Lambert. That's there in reference to what was originally supposed to happen to her.
Okay.
But like, how should I phrase this? Of course, I'm glad they changed it, but even if they hadn't, I don't think she would have deserved that, because she didn't even do anything. She was there. She was just a normal, nobody deserved any of this, but she especially didn't deserve that.
And nobody deserves that treatment. Like, there's no deserving of it, right?
I mean, on one hand, it does kind of make sense because the entire premise of this movie, the alien, I mean, he kind of rapes Kane to death.
The alien,
you know,
every cycle of this is the alien rapes, like that's what it does.
Yeah, like that's what it does. And so, like I said, I'm glad they changed it, and I'm glad that's not what happened to Lambert. But if they hadn't changed it, I would have been forced to admit that it kinda does make sense, even though I still would have been like, I wish they had done something else. But like this entire movie has like our earlier drafts of it were even more like rapey and sexual assaulty than even the final version of the movie is. Even discounting that, there was also a scene that I don't remember where I read it, and I haven't been able to find it since, but I do remember reading somewhere that there was supposed to be a scene near the end of the movie where Ripley is getting undressed to get in the pod, and at this point in the script, the version of the script, they all were nude inside of the pods, so she gets completely naked before she climbs into the pod, and then there is a scene of the alien watching her from like the shadows, and he's like, he looks at her while she's like taking off her clothes, and then like there's a shot of him looking at her breasts, and then he looks down where breasts would be on him, and then kind of like pats his own chest, and he starts like compare his own body to hers, and I was like, the fuck, when I was reading that.
That's weird. So I can see this feels, Ron Shusett was so quick to take credit for no, the face hugger, it's gonna fuck Kane, like to start that thing, and then obviously H.R. Giger on board. I'm going to put this on Ron. These are Ron Shissett's contributions to the script. I don't know about.
It's like as rapey as this movie is. Apparently, it was supposed to be even more rapey in the first few drafts, and then they like severely toned it down.
Well, there was that there's the classic story, right, of how Dan O'Bannon brought this script to Roger Corman, thinking it was going to be like a low budget, Roger Corman style sci-fi movie. And Roger Corman was like, I can't make this movie for as much money as I will spend on it. Like this movie's too expensive. Go shop it elsewhere. And if nobody else buys it, then I'll buy it and we'll rework it. But like, so I like that Roger Corman was like, he's like saw the, But these things that you're describing feel more Corman-esque. These feel more B-movie,
Yeah, they do. It feels like a very like. Are you familiar with the movie? I think it's called Humanoids from the Deep.
Only by title.
All right. Well, it's like a B movie about these like alien monsters from the water that like come out and attack people and stuff. And the premise, like the person that originally wrote it, the premise of it is that they were not coming out and killing people. They were coming out specifically because they needed like, women to breed with in their underwater kingdom or whatever. And then that aspect of it kind of got removed while they were working on the movie. And then they shot the movie. And then after they shot it, the studio brought somebody else in, like a different director, to come in and film all of these insert scenes, where all of the insert scenes was after these monsters would come on shore, they would kidnap a woman and then rape them.
Jesus Christ.
And that wasn't originally part of it was originally like the intent behind when the movie was written, but that got taken out of the script. And then after the movie was finished, they went out of their way and reinserted all of that
put
stuff
it back in. Jesus.
Without the director's knowledge or approval. And so when the movie came out, the director was like, what the fuck is this? This is not the movie I made.
Yeah. Wow, dude.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that those things got removed from this, because the imagery is strong enough as it is. But like, if they had gone just like fully sort of exploitation with this movie, it would not. I don't think it would have been good. Like,
yeah, it wouldn't have been very good, and it certainly would not be like an iconic, memorable, like historical and important movie for sure.
Because the way like the just the imagery, like the implication of that stuff in the alien design and in the penetrative aspects of a lot of its kills, it's unsettling because it triggers those things in your mind, but it's not so direct and overt about it that it becomes like schlocky and sort of like
exactly. Like, when Kane gets impregnated, like it's not done through the method by which when you hear the word impregnation you think of, it's like it's the same physical act but done in a biologically incompatible way that adds that like little thin layer of like disconnect that makes it in a way seem more horrific,
yeah it's effective.
It's an extremely, like you said, effective, like the movie knows what it wants to do and it does it in an extremely efficient way,
Do you have any more thoughts on the Xenomorph, the creature itself in this movie?
When they were doing the autopsy on the face hugger and they had it turned upside down and you saw all of its like organs there and everything.
Oh yeah, it was like oysters and stuff they used to make
like
that.
I didn't really have any specific thoughts about it. I just thought it looked cool. Like it reminded me of, I'm a big Stephen King guy.
Sure.
And it reminded me of a scene from one of his books, From a Buick 8, where they find this vaguely bat-like creature that comes from another dimension and they're doing an autopsy on it. And it just reminded me of that because it was like an alien creature that had all these like weird, bizarre organs that they didn't know what it was. And it just, it reminded me fondly of that. I didn't really have anything else to say about it.
Okay. Let's talk about the biggest monster. As we've watched Prometheus and Covenant, and we know that the synthetics are the real monsters in this franchise, right?
Mm-hmm. That is correct.
The biggest monster of the movie, Ash the robot. Ian Holmes, science officer Ash.
Mm-hmm.
Genuinely a terrifying villain. Honestly, like I know that the scene, like we see him throughout the course of the movie, the first half of the movie, the first 60-70% of it, right? More just thinking he's just a dude, just a human, right?
Yep
Man, that scene when Ripley goes in because she has access to Mother now and she's tired of Ash dicking around because Ash just keeps saying that he and Mother are still collating data on the situation of this alien outbreak and don't really know what to do, and she's like fed up and she's like, well, Dallas and Kane are dead, so I have access to Mother now. I am now like
I mean, she's the captain now,
HBIC, right?
Yeah.
She's King Dick on this ship. She has access to Mother, and she goes in and she discovers the order, Order 937, crew expendable, etc. And it cuts back from the screen, and Ash is just in the room with her, right? And he's like,
that is another one of those little details that I had completely forgotten about, that she's like looking at it and then leans back and he's just standing there staring at her. And I was like, oh, holy shit. All right.
Yeah. And she like has this like small altercation with him in there. She like shoves him against the wall and she's like, she gets out of the room and she goes to call Lambert and Parker, the only other two survivors at this point. Right. And she's got a nosebleed, right?
Yeah.
I don't know where the nosebleed came from, but she's got a nosebleed. It's stress or something.
From what I've been able to gather, it was some leftover continuity from like a minor subplot that eventually got cut from the movie. Like something happens in a scene that causes her to have the nosebleed.
Right.
Then they removed that scene, but they left the nosebleed part in,
Yeah, I don't know. It's cool. It still works because she's now trying to like get out of here, right? She's trying to go find Parker and Lambert, and Ash is just closing doors on her, right?
I loved that part so much. God. Like she would, and what's great about it is he didn't even do it on every single door. Like a door would get closed on her and then she would turn and walk down a hallway and take another turn and then walk up to another door and then go through it. And then the door right after that is the one he closes on her.
Yeah. And then she comes back to like confront him and we see him and there's just like this gentle like bead of like milky white liquid dripping down from his forehead.
And that is, I believe, the first indication we're ever given that he is something other than human.
Yeah.
Now, of course, at this point in the movie, we're like, again, a viewer in 1979 isn't even really aware that androids exist.
No.
Because, like, they hadn't been talked about it at all or not. So I'm wondering, a viewer, when this movie originally came out, they have that close-up of him and it looks like he's sweating, but it's white.
Right.
I wonder what they thought that was supposed to mean.
But he's got like this intense look on his face. He's got this like subtle twitch and everything. Yeah. And like you think, like, I wonder if you're thinking like, is he an alien? Is he the alien? Like, did the creature, because we didn't know anything about the xenomorph at this point.
Like, who fucking, like, at this point, who knows what it could or couldn't do? Maybe it could just turn into a human. Who knows?
Is it disguised as him? Did he somehow get infected and now he's like, you just have no fucking clue. If like watching this in 1979, you would have no idea what's going on at the beginning of this scene. But then just the fight is crazy, right?
It's great. He like picks her up and like throws her into a bunch of consoles, and I think he even does it one-handed, so they're like way stronger than humans.
Right. He's just throwing her around. It is fucking rough, And then the way he chooses to try to kill her, right?
Yep.
Just with this hatred and this like intensity that like, because he's so dedicated, he has to complete this mission, right? And it said it right there in the order, right? The company directive: crew expendable. So he can just kill them. Just anything he's got to do to return this organism.
All
back.
Other priorities rescinded. They're all meat to him now. Yeah.
Doesn't fucking matter. He takes a magazine. I've heard, I couldn't tell what it was. I've heard through other sources that it is an adult magazine. Right.
I assumed it was because the shot where he's rolling it up, there's some nude pinups in the background.
All pinned up on the wall.
I just assumed it was like the magazine those pictures were taken out of or whatever.
And he rolls it up super tight, and then he like forcibly tries to insert it into her mouth, over her mouth, like suffocating her. Again, like a face hugger, right? Like this is another example of just like the sexual violation of the monsters in this movie,
And that's actually something Ridley Scott has actually gone on record more than once as saying that the reason he tries to kill her with a rolled up newspaper is it is explicitly intended to be a stand-in for a dick because he doesn't have one because he's a robot. And so, like he's like, intended to have like frustration over his sexual impotence because he like can't have sex and doesn't have genitals. So when he decides to kill her, he does it by using what is literally explicitly intended to be a stand-in for a penis. Jesus. And that's how he tries to kill her with it, which gets me wondering, like if he did, would he have used that instead?
Oh man, God.
Like if he did have a penis, would he have tried to rape her rather than kill her?
Based on some of these earlier script drafts, potentially.
Yeah, because again, that's the thing. As you pointed out, he is just as much of a monster as the literal monster whose biological imperative is sexual assault.
Right.
And like the whole reason he's using, like literally Ridley Scott has said, the reason he's using the magazine is because he doesn't have a dick. Implying that if he had a dick, he would have used that instead. And I was like, what the fuck is wrong with these guys?
What is wrong with these androids in general? Like is this like a David? Is Ash secretly a David? Like it's fucked.
I don't know, man. It's like I said, there's the earlier draft of this movie was way more sexual assaulty, and then they cut out a whole bunch of it, but there is still a whole lot here to take in.
Jesus, there's too much, man. I'm so thankful they changed these things. There's another anecdote I'm gonna just mention. Another franchise that I love, the Friday the 13th franchise, right?
Yep.
And in part 3, originally the implication, I forget the final girl's name of that. I don't love part 3.
All right.
That she was supposed to have like she had an encounter in the woods with Jason Voorhees that she ended up blacking out and can't remember, but it's like given her this trauma, right?
All right.
She doesn't know it's Jason Voorhees. She just knew it was a strange, an uggo in the woods. Originally in the script, apparently Jason Voorhees was going to rape her, and the actor went to I think Steve Miner directed that one, and she was like, "Look, I don't want to do that." Right. And she's like, "Okay, all right." So they change it. So like she blacked out and she doesn't remember what happened after that. You watch the movie, there's no indication that it's rape, which is good that they removed that.
Yeah,
because
that's
it's like, could you imagine if that was part of Jason Voorhees's like origin, you know?
Yeah. That would have been really stupid, and I would not have liked or appreciated that. That doesn't even really make sense.
Yeah. So I don't know. There's just something in the air at this time, I guess, with probably particularly male filmmakers, I think, like writing women into these. Yeah, I don't know. It's bad. The interesting thing about Alien is that it's applying that to everyone. Like men are getting forcibly impregnated in the Alien universe. So it is preying on fears. It is giving men things to be fearful that they think that they're already safe from. Right. Like I think it's intelligent. I think it's good that it does that and explores that. I think that the idea of a male android raping a woman to death is a very bad one, though. Like,
yeah, that's not. I mean, it's one of those things where when I read that, I was like, all right, I see what their intention is.
Yeah.
Because like the whole thing is that like bad, like in this movie, the definition, like, a thing that is bad, the reason it is bad is because it commits rape and or sexual assault.
Right.
That is the thing. That is what bad things do in the world of this movie.
And in Mortal Kombat Conquest.
But like that's true. But like the thing of it is that it's like you already have a monster that is going around and murdering people. We also don't need a whole bunch of rapes happening at the same time, because that is just absolutely in no way is that necessary.
Right. Then you're again crossing into the exploitation.
Yeah. Which genre. This movie is not. It is not an exploitation
It's
movie,
not. No. And those have their place, right?
They do, yeah.
But this is it. But yeah.
Yeah, like I said,
just
this
imagine
movie,
the version of this movie we could have gotten, right?
Yeah, just imagine this movie, but with all the raping still in it. I would have watched it once and been never fucking again.
Right, yeah. I mean,
like I said, this movie would not have become famous and historical and well loved and in the Library of Congress, if all that stuff was still in it.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm glad it's not. Anyway.
Yeah. Same.
Parker comes in and beats the shit out of Ash with a fire extinguisher, and we see the body start breaking apart and the head get knocked off and the torso get torn, like he gets torn down the center, and we see the white guts and fluids shooting everywhere, which again, I mean, white.
I loved it. But I thought it was great. I loved the prop work and the design work on this, because like how you said that it splits in half, I should point out that it's not his head that splits in half. His head gets knocked off and flops backwards at the neck. It's like the top of his torso
like tears,
that splits open, like almost like an autopsy wound in a way.
Right.
It kind of breaks in half and unfolds, and you can see all of like his quote unquote internal organs inside.
Sure.
And that first shot, like when he's lying there and there's that like little Y-shaped tube that's spurting out the milk.
Yeah.
I was like, God damn, this looks so fucking gross. I love it.
It's a gruesome, gross scene, man. It's uncomfortable. It's the grossest thing in this movie, weirdly, is the android. Like
it is the most explicitly violent and gory part of the movie.
Because we're seeing,
and it's not even organs and blood,
No, but we're seeing a human, a person we thought was human this entire time, get split open to reveal that they're not human, but they're they're human adjacent, right? They're
They
artificial.
still have, they still
human.
have organs and blood. It's just not the organs and blood we're used to.
So there's just something so uncomfortable about seeing it.
Yeah.
Like,
agreed.
You know, I mean, I could tolerate it fine when it was David's head getting ripped off in Prometheus, like but still watching this still is like, oh, this is a lot, you know. Like,
it is extremely gross. Like I said, the prop design looks great. Great job to whoever it is that actually designed that. I don't know who the specific designer for it was, but whoever it was, they did a fucking phenomenal job.
Yeah, terrific special effects work all around. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think that, you know, they then, like, Ash gets like one more dig in, I guess, after they like just hook his head up so they can like get answers on his mission, and he reveals everything. And then he just has like this scene at the end where he's like, this little line at the end where he's like, I won't lie to you about your chances of survival, but you have my sympathies. And then the head smiles.
And then
they just like
Ripley angrily unplugs it. And then when they leave, Parker turns around and blasts it a couple of times with a flamethrower.
Burns it with the flamethrower. It's so, yeah, man. Ash, the true villain of the movie. I mean, he executed all of this, right? Like,
like it was because of him that literally all of this happened. Yes, the Xenomorph is just an animal trying to survive.
Right.
You know, Ash. I was gonna say he made a choice, but he was programmed to do this. But you know what I mean.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know that he can make choices. You know, I mean.
And the thing that really sucks about this is that even though R.I.P. Ash turns out not R.I.P. Ash, because he's still alive, as we find out in one of the sequel novels.
Sure, and Ash will return in Out of the Shadows. All
right. Do you have anything else you wanted to say about this section, about the Ash section of the movie?
I think I'm good. Great performance by Ian Holm. Terrifying villain. Sets the standard for uncomfortable relationships with artificial humans in the Alien franchise. Like,
for sure.
Bishop's gonna have it, like, as we'll see in Aliens. Bishop has an uphill battle from here. You know.
That's right.
So, but no, I think I'm good. I think I'm good on the Ash of it all. I think I'm good on the monsters.
All right. Well, there's one last segment of the movie to get to.
Sure.
The quote unquote fourth act. That's the final like 10 or 15 minutes of the movie.
Yep.
There is one or two brief things I would like to mention first, just as a very small aside.
Okay.
There is a part here after Ash dies where right like during the scene when Parker and Lambert are going down to gather the stuff and like Ripley's making her way alone to activate the thing.
Yes.
By that point she had already like tied up her hair, you know, and she's climbing down the ladder, and then she turns and like starts heading towards the camera, and like the specific like angle she's standing at and like the lighting and like the look on her face, I was like, wow, she really looks exactly like Nev Campbell in this one specific shot.
Okay. All right.
And also earlier on during the scene, like, or the scene when Dallas is walking around in the vents that, you know, ends with him getting killed, there's a shot of him walking towards the camera with the flamethrower in front of him. And I was like, this motherfucker looks exactly like RJ McCready.
Oh, jeez.
He had like the hair, he has the beard, he's holding the flamethrower, and I'm like, this motherfucker looks exactly like Kurt Russell in The Thing.
I think the Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing owes a debt to Alien for sure. Right.
Yeah, now that I've rewatched Alien, I was like, these movies really are a lot more similar than I originally gave them credit for.
Yeah.
But anyway,
so for this final section, people have seen the movie. We don't need to go super beat by beat on every event that happens, right?
Yeah.
But I want to talk, I don't think we've talked enough about who has now emerged as the hero of the film, Jonesy the cat. I'm just kidding. Warrant Officer Ellen Ripley, right?
Yep.
She's the hero. You don't think she is at the beginning of this movie. Like, she emerges, she's revealed to be the hero in the same way of like Alice revealed to be the final girl in Friday the 13th, right?
Yeah. She's like part of an ensemble cast, and all of the characters get roughly equal screen time. Then as they start to die off, the remaining ones still get approximately equal screen time until just over like halfway through the movie, they start to have one or two scenes where Ripley is doing something by herself or pulls someone aside, and we see that scene. And it's not until over halfway through the movie until you kind of start to go, we're seeing a little bit more Ripley than we used to now, you know?
Sure. And over the course of the film, I mean, she's good at her job. She takes her role seriously. We see her interacting with Parker and Brett quite a bit. The big scene is when Dallas and Lambert are bringing Kane back to the ship, and she is refusing to let them on board, right? Because of quarantine procedure. They're like, we got to save him. We got to get to the medical base, and we can save him. And she's like, no. And Dallas is like, this is a direct order. And she's like, I read you. The answer is no. I am not letting you on board. We can't let that thing on here. She's the voice of reason, and it's a cruel and it's a hard line to take. And I think that for audiences, not knowing that there's going to be several more Ellen Ripley movies in this franchise, you're watching that scene for the first time, and you're kind of thinking like, oh, I don't like her, right?
Yeah.
She's the one at odds with everybody else. Why aren't they saving this guy, you know?
That scene specifically goes out of its way to try to make you think that she has become the bad guy,
right?
You know,
yes.
It specifically frames her as being quote unquote in the wrong for like what you want to happen for the narrative of the movie.
Sure. And then Ash overrides her commands and lets them on board.
Ash decides to be a huge fucking bitch and then open the door anyway.
Sure. Then we get all of these scenes, like we get these scenes with her challenging Ash directly, like saying, you know, you've risked us all. Like, we're all going to have to quarantine now. You risked us all by letting that thing on board.
And his answer to that is basically, yeah, well, I had a job to do and I did.
Right. Yeah. He was like, what would you have me have done? Left him outside to die? And her just kind of being like, yeah, kind of, unfortunately.
Kind of.
This is...
I mean, that's what quarantine procedure is for, you know?
This is an unprecedented situation. Do you think that this is first contact with an alien species in general? I don't think it is, because, like, they didn't seem that thrown by the space jockey, right? They're like, they
were,
you know?
They were impressed, but they didn't seem to be, like, taken aback at the possibility.
Right.
So probably not.
This didn't seem like
even if it wasn't necessarily already past first contact, they at the very least were aware other alien species existed in some form or another.
Right. Yeah, it seems like it. Like this didn't seem like the discovery of alien beings out there. So anyway, but this in particular, you know, parasite thing probably pretty new, I guess. So
yeah, probably.
Yeah, so we are kind of like led to be like, oh, Ripley, she's kind of a buzzkill. She's the stickler, right? She's the hard ass, etc. You know, we see her, but then just like her interactions with Parker, who's pretty antagonistic, right, to everybody.
Yeah.
I love that scene where he comes in and he's just like, hey, Ash, you're sitting in my seat. And Ash like gets up and moves. It's like, there's no assigned seats, Parker. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But just...
And like another thing that I thought the movie did really well is that like near the end of it, when it's only Ripley, Parker and Lambert, and like they split up and Parker and Lambert go to grab the stuff and Ripley goes to activate the self-destruct, and like the way that movie is or the way that scene is structured is it's going out of its way to make you think that Ripley is the next one that's going to get killed. Because up to that point, every single person that had gotten killed by the Xenomorph, they were alone when it happened.
Oh, totally.
And so Ripley goes off alone, and they keep intercutting between the two groups of people, well, the pair and then the single, and like you don't know where the alien is, and so the scene is specifically structured to make you think that Ripley is going to be the next victim.
Yeah.
And then it shows up and kills two people at once. And then suddenly Ripley's the only person still left alive.
Sure.
And you're like, oh shit, not the person I was expecting to survive to the end of the movie.
Yeah, man. Yeah. She's great. But like, she, you know, and the thing is, like, ultimately she was right. Like, I think on a baseline level, worried about the quarantine procedure, that was right to do. You know, that was the thing that we saw them not do in Prometheus and Covenant that really fucks stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
She's just following the rules by the book, right?
Yep.
After Dallas dies, she's still trying to like push forward with that plan. She's like, 'cause I don't have a better plan. Does anybody else have a better plan? No, we're going to continue this plan then, right?
Yeah.
And ultimately, they don't. They decide that they need to just get on the shuttle and get the fuck out of there. Right.
Yeah, pretty much.
There's no way of getting like they just that's all they can do at this point.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, she takes charge. She takes command. She's just a good character. It's a very strong,
she rules.
Strong character. And here's the thing: we're gonna see a more expansion on Ellen Ripley in Aliens. I think that she's a terrific character in that movie as well. And then I'm not gonna lie, it kind of starts falling off for me. Alien 3, and then to the point where in Alien Resurrection, like that's a Ripley so far removed from, like, even just by way of being a clone, not to mention a clone still spliced with xenomorph DNA. It just doesn't even feel like Ripley at all. Yeah, I like that her journey kind of completes in 3, honestly, and I really wish it had just gotten kind of left there. We'll talk about that more on those movies, and
we certainly will.
And in at least one book where she's a major character set between Alien and Aliens.
Yeah.
Well, don't worry, it kind of makes sense, listeners.
Kind of.
Yeah, you could make a case for it. I don't know, dude. She just rules, and like the fact that she's just her judgment is right on. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Her judgment is she is the opposite of a fuck around and find out kind of person, right? She's like, right. No, I'm not letting that thing on board, period. That's going to put all of us in danger, and that's worse. No, we are blowing this ship up because we do not want this thing getting back to the company. That's it. We are going to blow up this ship. We are abandoning our mission. In Aliens, no, we're going to take off and nuke the entire site from orbit. It's the only way to be sure. Like, she is like, I'm not taking chances. You know, we're just going to do the biggest, most drastic thing we can possibly fucking do, right? Like, to settle this. It's great. I love it. You know, she's not playing hero, I think is the thing, right? Like, she's there to do what needs to be done. Right.
You know?
Yeah. Not to be a hero, but to just get the job done. I don't know. It's great. Yeah. I love it. Can't say enough good things about the character. But that ending, though, right?
Yeah, the what Ridley Scott referred to as the 4th act of the movie, because I don't know if they talked about this in the documentary because I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah.
But like, after she, like, you know, drops the rest of the ship and then like escapes, and then that ship blows up and she's like lying there in the chair, that was originally supposed to be the end of the movie.
Okay.
That's like how it was supposed to end. And then while they were like close to wrapping up filming, Ridley Scott had this idea about, what if it's in there with her rather than on the part that they just blew up?
Yeah.
And so he called up Fox and he's like, I need some more money. I got this idea, and then told him about it. And they were like, fucking absolutely. Here's some more money. And then he used that money and filmed what he refers to as the 4th act of the movie,
right, which
might be my favorite part of the whole movie, dog.
It's good. It's really good. I want to rewind just a little bit, though, before we get into the shuttle, because she is prepping the shuttle. She has to prep the self-destruct for the thing, right? It shuts off the cooling system, so I guess the reactor overheats and explodes, right?
Yeah.
That's the way it works. It's this long drawn out process that I love the technological aspect of it. It's like, you know, panels over here, levels over here, things you have to insert into the floor over here. Like, it is not a thing you can do. Like, you can't trigger the self-destruct sequence by accident, right?
Yeah, like, you have to be going, like, the only way it'll work is if you're going out of your way to do it on purpose. Yeah. Right. It can't be activated accidentally. It's too complicated.
Once it's activated, it's a 10-minute countdown, and then you have 5 the first 5 of those 10 minutes, you can cancel the procedure, right? So this is Ripley doing that, realizing the cat is out there, getting the cat carrier, scooping up the cat, trying to get back to the shuttle. The alien is in the way. Doesn't catch her, but it's in the way. So she runs back and she tries to cancel the override because she doesn't think she has time, and she can't. Like, she just barely misses it by like literally like 2 or 3 seconds. The 5-minute
just
countdown.
Barely misses the cutoff. Right. Yeah.
So then she has to then get back to the shuttle, and she's able to do it, and she's able to blast off, and it's great. It's a very tense scene, right? This countdown clock. Every time you put someone on a clock, it ratchets the tension up. And I was like, I wonder if this is 10 minutes. I'm going to time this whole section out and see if it's actually 5 minutes until the override is, she can no longer override the thing. And then if it's actually another 5 minutes until it explodes. Now, I got far enough to know that, okay, it's not actually 10 minutes. But Kenny, would you wager it's more or less time?
I would guess it's probably less.
It's less. It is less.
They're like, you have a 5-minute cutoff, and then 3 minutes of screen time later, they're like, 5-minute cutoff has been, hit or whatever.
That's pretty much it. It was about 3.5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
It was about 3.5 minutes until she couldn't. What I did is I started a timer at 10 minutes and I counted down. So we were just under 7 minutes, I think, when that was going on. And then just above 3 minutes, I think. I think the whole thing only took about 6 or 7 minutes. Again, I don't have the exact time stamps, but I just wanted to know. I was like, man, 5 minutes is a long time, but when you hear it in a movie, it doesn't feel like it's a very long time,
I mean, that does kind of make sense though, because we didn't see like every single moment of her like climbing up and down ladders and running up and down hallways and stuff. So like, in the context of the movie, it clearly was 10 minutes. We just didn't see all 10 minutes of it because we didn't need 7 minutes of footage of her just running down a hallway, So I guess that makes sense. But
I love
it is fun that you notated that. So
yeah, and I love that scene like that with the strobe everywhere and the steam because the cooling system's going haywire. And she's got the cat, and the poor cat, like she's tossing that cat carrier around. But you got to, right? Like she ain't fucking around. And then just that scene when she like peeks around the corner and the xenomorph is there, right? And she like
just
shoots
there.
Back. That scene, there's at Disney Hollywood Studios. I don't know if the attraction is still open, but there's the Great Movie Ride.
All right.
I don't know if you've ever been to like Disney World. They may have it at Disneyland.
I have not been to either of them, no.
Okay. Well, it takes you through kind of iconic scenes from different movies. Like I want to say there's an Indiana Jones scene separate from the Indiana Jones like stunt show or ride or whatever there are at the other park.
All right.
Might be something else. I can't remember all of the things you go through, but one of the scenes is that you're riding in, just your standard sort of attraction, ride car through. It's an animatronic Ripley with the flamethrower, and the cat carrier is there peering around a corner where there is a xenomorph, and the sirens are going, and the emergency is going, and the smoke machines are going, and it is just so fucking cool just to see that like brief little bit. Like I loved it. Like the last time I did that was like in high school. I went with some friends and rode that ride, and like it was just the coolest fucking thing. I have no idea if the attraction is still open or not, but I bet there's YouTube footage of it, But
I mean, I'll admit I do think that scene is very good.
Sure.
But knowing now that was originally supposed to be the climax of the movie, I'm glad they added some extra stuff, because the fourth act of the movie gives me the one thing that up to that point in the movie we wouldn't have gotten. And that is like, if the movie had ended with this scene, it would have ended without ever having a direct confrontation between the survivor and the monster.
Yeah, it absolutely needed this fourth act.
Yeah, for sure. otherwise it is cool, but yeah, like if the movie had ended there, I would have been like, I would have liked to see them fight. You know, which actually, ironically, is the same thing we said about Prometheus.
Right.
Show me the two of them fighting.
Yeah, let them fight.
Well,
right.
Well, Ridley Scott had the foresight to do that in this movie, at least. So
yeah, and then in 1979 he did it, and then in Prometheus years, 2013 or whatever.
It came out in 2012.
2012. He's like, I already did
it. Would have been 2011. He's like, yeah, I already did it. We don't need to do it again. And I'm like, no, but I liked it when you did it the first time.
Right. And then they did it, but then they just didn't give it to us. They did it in.
Yeah. Well, whatever. Anyway, fourth act of the movie.
Sure. Go watch Prey. They did it in Prey also.
That is correct. Also, just go watch Prey. Just like in general, just watch it.
Yeah. It's almost as good as this movie. I don't know that I'm prepared to say that, honestly, but it's really good.
I think you should keep it in anyway, but also keep the immediate backpedaling right afterwards.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, Kenny, take us through the fourth act.
All right. Basically, the fourth act, the third act ends with her flying away on the ship, and like the big like refinery part that they were hauling blows up in a series of massive, almost nuclear explosions. And she's like lying back on the ship and relaxing and finally having time to catch her breath.
And she's got the cat. She did save the cat.
She does have Jones, yes. And so she, after sitting there for a minute, the fourth act starts with her finally getting up and walking out over into like where the consoles are, setting everything up, programming everything. A good couple of minutes of her just like, you know, setting up, hitting all the buttons, you know, making all the calculations and programmings and stuff.
Yep.
And she strips down so that she has like an undershirt and a pair of panties on, and that's about it.
Right.
And she does something over at this other console, and then she walks over to a different console on the wall and starts typing away at it, doing some other things, but it's kind of in an awkward position, so she has to like kind of like lean and reach over to get it.
Right.
And she's typing away at it, and then one piece of the wall in front of her shifts, and the alien arm shoots out, and turns out the fucking Xenomorph is just right there on the ship with her, and has been there the whole fucking time.
The whole time, blending into the wall, like into the machinery on the wall. It's really, what's fun is once you know what to look for, there are earlier shots before she goes over there where you can see it and identify it because he was there. They built that set around him.
It is specifically designed to accommodate the alien being there. And that's something that I kind of hinted at earlier. Like, this is another one of those scenes where I forgot that detail. Like, I knew he was on the ship with them, but I forgot specifically where on the ship. So when I was watching the scene and she was like leaning over and typing away on that computer, for whatever reason, my brain remembered like the thing was like inside of a pod or something. And so she was typing away on this computer, and I was like, oh, is she like going to turn around and see the alien? And then like right after I thought that to myself, it like lunges out at her with the hand, and I went, oh my God, fuck, that's right. He's right there. Shit. Holy shit. Oh my God.
It's really cool. It's, he's in there. And like, there's something weird about him, but again, I think it only feels weird just in the context of how we've seen Xenomorphs act in other movies. He's just sort of in there. He's moving slow. He's
chilling.
He's not climbing out to lunge at her.
Yeah.
You know, he is working his way out, but he's not in a particular hurry.
Well, he doesn't start working his way out until later. Like, you know, when he like lunges at her, like afterwards, I kind of got the vibe that he had like, you know, he decided this is where he was going to post up. And so he's posting up there, and then he like swipes at her because she's like nearby bothering him.
Right.
And then when she gets scared and runs away, he's like, okay, she's gone. Fine. And just like goes back to chilling or whatever.
It's like it is like a bug.
Yeah. And like that's actually another thing that I remember reading from somewhere. The reason why he's kind of like leaving her alone and not going after her and just kind of shoos her away is because the original idea is that these things had a really short lifespan. And so the reason why he wasn't bothering with her and just kind of shoos her away and then leaves her to herself is because it was in the process of dying. So it didn't really care and wasn't interested in going after her.
That makes sense. Interesting.
But anyway, he spooks her and then she runs away, and then she like runs into like the spot, like, you know, the closet where they like keep the pressure suits.
Yes.
And she like, while she's staring at him the entire time, and he's just kind of like, you know, sitting there like twitching, seemingly asleep, like how like, you know, a baby in a crib will just be lying there and kind of shift position a little bit. He's kind of doing the same thing. He's just like kind of curled up chilling and like watching him, eyes on the whole time. She like puts on the suit, loads this harpoon gun, and then activates this control mechanism that like blasts this superheated steam directly into the spot where it is. And he's kind of like screaming and crying and writhing around, but she keeps on doing it until he finally crawls out of the spot and flops onto the ground, because her intention is she's going to blow the airlock and launch him out into space.
Yeah. She's got herself strapped in, so she's not going to go anywhere. It's so she's singing a song called "You Are My Lucky Star" while she's doing this, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And apparently the studio got mad because the rights to the song were extremely expensive and they had to secure them for the movie.
Yeah, I believe it was in, what was it? Singing in the Rain, I think it was.
Something, yeah. So she's just, this was just Sigourney Weaver decided she was going to do this. It's cool.
And then they were like,
it's a really,
fuck,
really
right.
cool. Like, I love that she's, I mean, honestly, got something to say during all of this. Like,
and especially considering she doesn't even have anyone else there. The only person she can talk to is herself. And so she like figured out a way to still have like dialogue and character development and stuff that wasn't just her monologuing her thoughts out loud, you know?
Yeah, totally. And hey, the plan works, right?
Yeah, she blows the airlock and he almost gets sucked out. And then like when they did that in Covenant, claws on the door jam all of a sudden. And then she pulls out the harpoon and shoots him in the chest and it blasts him out. And then she closes the door. And then he's like trying to scramble around and get back in. So he sees like the hole that is one of the jet engines, and he's like, maybe I can get in here. And he starts crawling, and then she's like, fuck you, bitch, and hits the button, and just the jet engine ignites, and it doesn't burn him to a crisp, but it does clearly kill him, and then blows the body fully out into space, and it just drifts away.
She, now, just to be clear, she does not say "fuck you, bitch" when she hits that button.
She does not. Correct.
Because she will have
that was me editorializing.
Right. She has a similar line in Aliens, but we're not there yet. So, yeah, man. And then she takes her seat at the command and gives her final flight log. Ellen Ripley, last survivor of the Nostromo.
And then after that, we had already seen her earlier put Jones in the pod, and then she climbs into the pod, presumably the same one that Jones is in. And you see her just asleep inside of it. And the final shot is just like a slow, tight zoom onto her asleep face inside of the pod. And then it just cuts to the Star Wars credits where there's like stars in the background, and then the credits are going by in front of it.
Yeah, God.
It rules, and I love it. Like, they really go out of their way, because like you don't know during this entire section that the alien is still alive, but you know something is going to happen, because there's a reason this scene is in the movie.
There's a reason the movie's still happening. Yeah, it's still going
there's
on.
a reason we see her typing in all these coordinates. Like you said, there's a reason the movie is hasn't ended yet. So we don't know what's going to happen. And so that suddenly reveal of the alien is in there with her, which means all that effort and like activating the self-destruct served no fucking purpose whatsoever.
Yeah, man.
She lost 20 million tons of cargo for no reason. And as it turns out, that is the plot hook that the sequel is entirely based upon.
That's all the company cares about. Yes.
I love this section of the movie so much, not just because, as I mentioned earlier, we finally get a direct confrontation between them, but it's just everything about it is just so weird and tense because like I said, you know the movie is still happening, but you don't know why. And so you're like constantly searching the edge of every single screen because like most of the scenes are like just straightforward, non-moving shots of whatever is happening, and the camera itself isn't moving, so you have a lot of time and a lot of opportunity to like look around on the edge of the frames, and it's like, oh, does that shadow maybe have an alien in it? Oh, is that moving pipe actually an alien? Like, you have a lot of opportunity to like wonder what's going to happen next, and like the tension and the suspense that scene builds really worked for me really, really well.
Excellent conclusion of the movie. Excellent movie in general.
Hardest possible agree.
Look, this is not going to be the last time we talk about 1979's Alien. We're gonna have to discuss like specific aspects of this movie, different versions of this movie. In the future, we might just want to like pick out certain like parts of this movie and talk about it. Obviously, we want to talk about the director's cut at some point. We've been going now. This ain't going to be the final length because there will be some cuts, but we've been rolling here for 3 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah, I was going to say, as of right now, raw recording, we're at almost 3.5 hours.
And I can think of a bunch more stuff that I want to say about this movie, but I think we've addressed a lot of the important stuff for now. You know?
Yeah, dude, going through my notes, there's a whole bunch of other stuff I could also say about this, but like, I think we've thoroughly explained this point in the timeline for the listeners, you know? I think they get the gist, so to speak.
My biggest takeaway, my biggest surprise is how different the creature is in this than in everything else we see. But this is still like the origin point for it, you know, like, everything else came off of this, whether it seems to make sense or be connected or not, you know? Right. And the thing that I want is I want new stuff to feel more like this.
God, that would be great, wouldn't it?
And that doesn't mean that I want an explanation for why the mother computer is in that weird 1970s room, you know, or...
Yeah,
or
it's
what
like you want a movie that tonally feels like this.
Yeah. Yes, I want a movie that tonally feels like this, which is not something that Prometheus or Covenant delivered, despite Prometheus having a lot of visual references to this. Like in particular, I mean, obviously the engineer technology, but also, you know, the spacesuits, the helmets, particularly.
Yep.
But yeah, man, they haven't done it. They haven't. Even Ridley Scott himself didn't like recapture this magic.
Nope. He was not able to figure out what everyone loved so much about his original movie, you know?
I think that James Cameron, I know your feelings on the movie. I think that James Cameron is going to do a pretty good job of it. Like, it's going to at least feel set in the same world, you know?
Yeah. All right.
Even if who knows? I mean, there's some like slight creature design differences. Like maybe this is a different species of xenomorph than what we see in the other one, you know? Like, that's a possibility.
I think, like, in Aliens, don't they have, like, the weird, like, horned, ridged skulls rather than the smooth one that this one has?
They do, and I've heard conflicting things. I could be wrong about this, but I remember the explanation back in the day was that those might have just been older. Like, they've just matured past the point of where this one had matured in this movie, because this one was only a day or two old. You know,
fair enough, yeah.
But who actually knows? You know,
yeah, who fucking knows?
I know that the toy line, this was called the Warrior Alien, and you could get it in a double pack with the Predator, like from the first movie style.
All right, yeah.
And the Aliens ones were called Scorpion Aliens.
That's fun, I guess.
With the ridge, I don't think that's an official name, but those were cool because. This again speaks to Aliens being a very different movie than this. They had a little button on the back that you could press, and their torsos would explode.
That rules. I love it.
It was a very fun toy. My brother had two of them that I eventually inherited, and they got blown away by G.I. Joes quite a bit.
Of course they did. Of course.
Yeah,
of course
it was fun. But anyway, yeah, so maybe it is just a different species, but like the thing that sticks out so much to me is that this just feels like a different creature. And I'm into it. Like I'm into the slow, the less intense, the stalking, coming out of the shadows, pun intended, alien out of the shadows, like silent killer version of the Xenomorph. It's terrifying and it's cool, and it could be anywhere. It could be in any corner of the room and you may not even notice,
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like the version of the alien, like the type of alien, the way it acts in this movie, seeing this, the way it acts in this is the thing that made me go, man, Xenomorphs are cool.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm with you. Like, I wish there had been even one other thing that also did this.
Right.
And so, yeah, like I said, like this, yeah, maybe. I mean, Isolation definitely tries that. And to be honest, Alien 3 also tries to do that too, because like, one they have them fight the single one.
Yeah.
Then in 2 they do the whole horde of them.
Yes.
So then in 3 they went back to the style of 1 where they're fighting one single alien.
Right.
And then that didn't work great. So when they made the 4th one, they're like, well, let's try to do aliens again and have them fight a whole horde. Then we got Resurrection,
Yeah, but Resurrection isn't really a horde. I think Resurrection, there's like maybe 6.
True. Well, there's multiple of them.
But there's more than one. And then Covenant, we had the 2 separate, the Neomorphs, and then we had the 2 Praetomorphs.
Yeah.
But at separate times. I mean, that was kind of and then of course the Deacon at the end of Prometheus.
Yeah, who turns into a mountain apparently.
Who turns into a mountain apparently. Forgot about that.
Well, I'm glad I reminded you then.
Turns into a mountain. I can't wait to read more of those weird ass comics, dude. But for now, I think we should probably climb in this shuttle.
Yeah, go back into hypersleep
before the countdown finishes and we blow up.
That's right.
Kenny, where can people find you on the internet?
My Twitter handle is at CYHOBBEZ. As I, usually say when I'm doing these, I pretty much just post about the stuff I've been playing or watching. And when I remember to, I will also retweet tweets from the show's account, especially when we have a new episode coming out. Yeah. So come by and follow me. I don't post a lot, but I'll still appreciate it all the same.
All right. You can find me on Twitter at Final Neal and Instagram at Final Neal Retro. And you can check out my other podcast, MK Podquest, all about Mortal Kombat movies, TV shows, comic books. And I think at the time of this recording, but maybe not at the time of release, we are still a Street Fighter podcast. But you can still find that show at mkpodquest.com. Kitty Cat Rohrbacher, where can people find our show on the internet?
We have a website. That website's URL is crewexpendable.net. We have an Instagram account, and I believe the handle is at crewexpendablepod.
Yep.
And then our Twitter account is at crewexpendapod.
That's right. The very easy to understand and not clunky at all Twitter username, crewexpendapod.
Yeah, where all 3 of our social media things are all slightly different from each other. Mm-hmm. Yep. Very good SEO on our part.
Yeah, we're great at branding. So instead of saying until next time, stay frosty, should we say this is Hallstrom and Rohrbacher, last survivors of the podcast, signing off?
I love it.
Or yeah, let's do that. Okay. How do we say that though together?
Yeah, I know. I was sitting there going, what are we supposed to do here?
Okay, so I'm going to say my name and then you say your name and then I'll say last survivors of the podcast and then you say signing off.
Okay.
So last name. Okay. So what does she say her rank and everything?
She does, yes.
Okay. So this is fossilized alien Hallstrom.
And this is Ship's Cat Rohrbacher.
Last survivors of the podcast.
Signing off.